So in Chapter 8, we're going to be looking at consumer mathematics. And so we begin in this video with section 8.1, which does a summary of percents. So the word percent means per hundred or out of 100. When we find the percent of a quantity, we're finding the equivalent amount out of 100. So we're going to start by reviewing some of the basics of percents. To begin with, I want to review how to write percents as a decimal. So to write a percent in decimal form, we divide by 100% and write the answer in decimal form. So this is equivalent to dropping the percent symbol and moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. So in example 1, we want to write each percent in decimal form. So if I want to change 83% to decimal form, what I'm really doing is I'm dividing 83% by 100%. And this is a legal move in mathematics because 100% is the same as 1. And if we multiply or divide something by 1, we get the same quantity. So we're dividing by 1, really, which is giving us an equivalent quantity. So when we divide by 100%, the significance of that is that the percent symbol will go away, it'll divide out, and so we're left with 83 divided by 100, and when we divide by 100, all that happens is the decimal point moves 2 places to the left. So for 83, the decimal point's understood to be behind the 3, so if that moves 2 places to the left, then that's going to move the decimal point in front of the 8. So this is going to give us a decimal equivalent of 0.83. Again, so what this really amounts to is when we change from a percent to decimal is that we drop the percent symbol and we move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So again, on 83% here, the decimal point is understood to be behind the 3. That moves 2 places to the left, which would be in front of the 8, and we drop the percent symbol to get 0.83. In the same way, if we want to change 6.75% to decimal form, we can divide by 100%. So the percent symbol will divide out, and the decimal point will move 2 places to the left whenever we divide by 100. So this decimal point currently is between 6 and 7, so that's going to move in front of the 6 would be 1, and we're going to need a 0 placeholder for the second place. So in other words, we're going to get 0.0675. So again, that decimal point's just moving 2 places to the left, and we drop the percent symbol. Part C, we have 0.5%. So again, if we divide that by 100%, the percent symbols will divide out, and our decimal point is going to move 2 places to the left because we divide by 100. So moving it 2 places to the left, we're going to have to add in a couple of zeros. So we're going to need 0.005. So again, the decimal point was here, and it's moved 2 places to the left, and we had to add in those 2 0 placeholders in order for that to happen. So again, the point here is just a quick review. You've certainly done this before in your previous academic experience, but just a quick review on how to change a percent into decimal form. And then sometimes we'll want to go in reverse. So if we want to write a decimal as a percent, well, to write a decimal as a percent, we multiply by 100%. Again, that's the same as multiplying by 1, so all that we're really doing is changing the form of the quantity. We're not changing the value of the quantity. So this is equivalent to moving the decimal point to the right 2 places and then including the percent symbol. So if I want to change 0.423 as a percent. So I'm going to write this decimal as a percent. So then what I'm going to do is multiply by 100%. So if I take 0.423 times 100, multiplying by 100 is just going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So behind the 4 would be one place, behind the 2 would be a second place. So that's going to be 42.3%. So 0.423 as a percent is 42.3%. Similarly, if I have 0.012, to change that to a percent, I'm going to multiply by 100%. Multiplying by 100 moves the decimal point 2 places to the right. So the decimal point from here is going to move 2 places to the right, which will put it between the 1 and the 2. So we're going to have 1.2%. So again, my decimal point moves 2 places to the right, and then we include the percent symbol. Last but not least, 2.35, changing that to a percent. So I'm going to multiply by 100%. Multiplying by 100 is going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So that's going to be 235, and the decimal point then would technically be behind the 5. Usually we don't write it when it comes at the end, percent. So 2.35 is the same as 235%. Next, what if we have a fraction? If we have a fraction and we want to write the fraction as a percent, then we basically can use the same approach that we used for writing a decimal as a percent, and that is we can multiply by 100%. So if I want to write the fraction as a percent, to write a fraction as a percent, we multiply by 100% and simplify. So if I want to write 3/4 as a percent, then that will be 3/4 times 100%. So how do I multiply 3/4 times 100%? Well, multiply 3/4 times 100. So think of that 100 as being over 1. So 4 will cancel with 100, leaving 25. So we have 3 times 25, which is 75, over 1 times 1 is 1, which we don't need to write. So that is 75%. 3/4 is the same as 75%. What if we want to change 1/8 into a percent? Well, again, I can multiply 1/8 times 100%. So think of the 100 as being over 1. So if we look at the 8 and the 100, we can divide 4 out of both of those. Divide 4 out of both of those, so that would leave 2 there. 8 divided by 4 would be 2, and 100 divided by 4 would be 25. So I'm left with 1 times 25, which is 25, over 2 times 1, which is 2%. Now if we were to divide 25 by 2, let's just do that over here on the side. 25 divided by 2, well, 2 goes into 2 once, drop down my 5. 2 goes into 5 twice, that's 4, and that leaves a remainder of 1. So this would be 12 with 1 remainder, and we put that 1 over the 2, so that would be 1/2. So this would be 12.5%. Or if we want, remember when we divide, we can put in a decimal point and bring that up and drop in a 0 behind it. And so then I could drop down that 0. 2 divides into 10 5 times. 2 times 5 is 10, and that gives me a remainder of 0. So this would be the same as 12.5%, which should make sense because 1/2 is the same as 0.5. So 12.5 is the same as 12.5. So 1/8, we started with 1/8, that equals 12.5%, or we could write that as 12.5%. And usually in real practice, we would use like the 12.5% rather than the 12.5%. Let's look at part C. It works the same sort of way. So if I want to change 13/16 into a percent, then I'm going to multiply by 100%. Think of the 100 as being over 1. So 16 and 100 can both be divided by 4. So 16 divided by 4 is 4. 100 divided by 4 is 25. So I have 13 times 25, and 13 times 25 is 325. So that is 325 divided by 4%. Now again, normally in real practice, we're not going to write it that way. We're going to write it as, usually as a decimal. So if we take 325 and divide by 4, 4 goes into 32 8 times. And so I can drop down my 5. When I subtract, that's 0. Drop down my 5. 4 goes into 5 1 time. And subtract, that leaves a remainder of 1. So I could say that that is 81. And then I have 1/4 of a percent. Okay, so I could say that is 81 1/4%. But again, in real practice, we don't usually write it that way. Instead, we would put in a 0, or put in a decimal point and add a 0 behind it, drop it down. 4 goes into 10 twice, that's 8. Subtract, I get 2. Add another 0, drop it down. 4 goes into 25 times, and 5 times 4 is 20. And so at that point, it terminates. So this would be the same as 81.25%, which again should make sense because 1/4 is the same as 0.25. So 81 1/4 is the same as 81.25. So 13/16 is 81.25%. Now just for the sake of it, I'm going to show you the calculator as well. So like for example, if I took, like back up here on example 1, if I took 83 divided by 100, that gives me 0.83. If I take 6.75 divided by 100, that gives me 0.0675. If we take 0.5 divided by 100, that gives me 0.005. Likewise, for example 2, if I take 0.423 times 100, that gives me 42.3%. If I take 0.012 times 100, that gives me 1.2%. If I take 2.35 times 100, that gives me 235%. And then similarly, here on example 3, if I take 3/4 times 100, that gives me 75, so 75%. If I take 1/8 times 100, that gives me 12.5 or 12.5%. And similarly, if I take 13/16 times 100, that gives me 81.25, which is again the 81.25%. So we can use our calculators. So we've looked at our first 3 examples of section 8.1, and so I'm going to pick up with example 4 on the next video.